Hello, hello, hello. I am starting. Well, I've come on early so that I can start directly at 8:30 because I value your time and your presence. So just come on into the space. When you arrive, just hit hi in the comments so I know that you are here with me. There's something that I need to check. So give me a moment. Bring your dinner, bring your snack, bring your beverage. Whatever it is that you want to bring it with you because we are just going to have a conversation. I hope that your day has been great. And if it hasn't, I hope that our time together makes it better. Just put in the comments and tell me how you're doing tonight. I'm going to start promptly at 8:30, which is in 2 minutes. Hi, Sora. Sherry, how are you? Good to see you. If you could just put in the comments where you are or how you're doing, I will greet you. Hi, Lisa, how are you? Good to see you. I'm trying to locate something, so just give me a moment, please. Okay. Come on in. If you have not done so, please, please, please take the survey at the link that I just provided. I want to hear from your voice. I pinned it at the bottom of the page. So that's how you pin stuff. Okay. Well, hello there, Dr. Skanes. Are you highly favored? Because I feel in my shando that you're speaking in tongues right now. I feel in my shando that you are speaking in tongues right now. All right, we are going to start in about a minute. Let me just share this to the Legaleaze page. Let's see, share to a page. Just come on in. How are you doing? You sit with a glass of wine and some cheese. Okay, I ain't mad at you. I am sitting with, let me get to the screen so I can see myself. I'm sitting with my beverage right here. I got my opener ready to start. It has been a long day, a long day. But I'm grateful to be alive, and that is what matters. So it is 8:31. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for showing up. Um, for those of you who don't know, welcome to Legaleaze, please. My name is Natasha Robinson, and I am the creator and curator of Legaleaze, please. Legaleaze, please is a virtual and digital platform that allows me to be able to demystify and explain what legal terms are so that the learner is able to understand how this applies to his or her or their everyday lives. So, what this means is that a lot of times, particularly now, in the times in which we live, there are a lot of media cases that are going on in which there may be a lot of legal commentary. And the legal commentary may be very concise in nature because most of these commentaries are on the news in real time. And so there are times where different terms are used, and then there are times when the commentary is very short. And so there is no feedback. And so I wanted to create a platform where I am able to demystify and deconstruct legal language and to do it specifically as it relates to criminal law. Now, as it relates to uh, why I feel that this is a necessity, I'll be happy to tell you why. So, I have been, and I'll get into this in a little bit, I have been a licensed criminal defense attorney or licensed in the state of Illinois. This month makes 20 years and a few months. Licensed as an attorney, period, it will be 21 years this month. And so I have learned that once I graduated from law school, that myself and other legal professionals used what is called legalese, but it's spelled different. It's spelled Legalese. And legalese would be a language that not legal attorneys, but legal professionals would communicate with each other. It would be similar to how doctors communicate with each other, or educators, or people in business. You use different codes, or you use different acronyms, or what have you. And so, in the practice of law, if you are able to speak to someone and someone says to you, hey, I want to have a meeting with the judge, and you would say, okay, well, there are a couple ways you can do this. You can do it by way of a 402 conference where the prosecution will give a proffer, and then I will make a response, and then you have to decide whether or not you're going to exercise your constitutional right. All of that language is correct, but what it does is it can alienate the person with whom you are speaking. And it can also berate them, because if they do not know the meaning of different terms and different languages, although you are the expert, there is a disconnect between the person who is giving advice or giving sound counsel, because the person who is listening or hearing doesn't understand what the hell you're talking about. And I have seen relationships disintegrate because of the language that is used between a legal professional and a person who is not a legal professional. And so I felt that because criminal law, I feel, intersects our lives in so many ways, that it's incumbent upon me to at least lead the charge, so that not only are you knowledgeable about what the law is and what the law is not, about information that you may see on social media that may not be true, and you may share it, or someone you know may share it, and it in fact is not the case. Um, or if there's a situation where there is knowledge, but you don't have relevant and accurate knowledge, or you don't have access to the knowledge, then it can be very frustrating. And I felt that it was my calling to create this platform for me to be able to discuss different legal cases, preferably criminal cases, because that is my area of specialties, to discuss criminal cases, and for you to be able to ask questions or provide insight. And then not only do I provide knowledge, but I provide access to ways in which we can advocate, not just for ourselves, but for others, and ways in which we can be empowered with knowledge. Because in the legal system, it's one thing to be able to express yourself, but it's something totally different when you are able not to just use legal terms and legal language, but you are able to know what it is that you are talking about. And that's what I want. Also, I know that sometimes when legal language is used, it is an attempt to oppress, because words matter. And here at Legaleaze Please, the way in which I inform, the way in which I teach, It is not for you to feel less than yourself because you don't know. The only reason why I know is because at one point I didn't know. Okay. And to be honest, and I'll get into my story, when I was in law school, of all the classes that I took, the class that I did the best in is Contracts 2, which is civil in nature. The worst classes that I did in the worst grades that I got were in criminal law and criminal procedure. Criminal law and criminal procedure. So I say that to say that just because you may not do well in a particular period of time does not mean that that is not your calling. It just means that there are different identifiers to understand how you can do better. And then sometimes some of the pressure and the focus on what we think is important in real time is not important. So, for instance, I feel like Grace is going to make an appearance. Uh, for instance, when I represented people who are charged with first degree murder, of all the cases they asked, all the questions rather they asked me, they never asked me, Natasha, where did you go to law school? They didn't ask me that. They didn't ask me what was my favorite brief that I wrote. They didn't ask me what were my awards in law school. They did not ask me what were my grades in criminal law and criminal procedure. Because you want to know why? They don't care. All they want to know is, can you advocate for them? Can you speak for them? Can you keep them in the process? Because at the end of the day, the decision directly affects them and their family. I'm going home. They may or may not be. And so these are the reasons why I created Legaleaze, please. Okay? I have an agenda, so I'm going to look over here. So how did I get the name Legaleaze, please? So remember I told you Legaleaze is a legal language or a legal way. It's kind of like code switching. Okay, except legalese is using actual legal language. So I'm able to talk with a legal professional in criminal law, and I'm able to talk to them in a way where if you were listening and you do not have any familiarity with what I'm talking about, you would have no idea what I'm saying. Okay, and so I changed the spelling to legal and then ease, Eaze, because I wanted there to be an ease in the way that we understand information and an ease in the way where you can present your questions or your comments and I'm able to say, okay, well, let's look at it from this perspective, or yes, you are absolutely on it, or there are some things that are misconstrued or lead to the road to misinformation that I'm going to clear up in a loving and professional way. So it is not about berating and saying, I can't believe you didn't know this. No, no, no. It's about providing accurate knowledge and providing access to the knowledge. So that's part of where I got the name from. The other part is when I was a new lawyer, I'm a member of many families. So although my last name is Robinson, I have been adopted in many, many families. And one of the families had a matriarch. She is now resting with the ancestors. Her name was Grandma Rose. I call her Grandma Birdie because that is what I knew her to be in the home church that I grew up. And she would ask me different legal questions all the time, and I would give her answers, and I would try and break it down. And she would say to me, okay, legalese, okay, legalese, okay, legalese. That was her name for me. So that, I felt that was a term of endearment. So whenever I would hear legalese, I knew that she was calling me. Even in church, she wouldn't say Natasha. She would say legalese. And I knew immediately that she was calling me. So actually, every time I use the word legalese or the term legalese, please, I think about her. So I say her name in gratitude, Grandma Birdie, Grandma Rose. That she is a flower. She is someone who lives with me, And she constantly reminds me that I need to make sure that I pay it forward. Okay. So I pinned in the comments section the survey that I need you to take. There is a survey that I need you to take, and the reason why I created this survey is because your voice matters. And I want to make sure that this platform is not just me telling you what I think you need to know. I want you to tell me, as it relates to criminal law, what topics you wish to discuss, or what topics you wish me to discuss, to dismantle, to demystify, so that I am able to help you. This is a service. And I just want to be able to hear your voice. So make sure that you complete that survey. I have pinned it in the comments. At least I did. So let me just make sure I didn't skip anybody. Hey, Dr. Kimberly King Garrett, am I giving out homework? I can. You know I'm good for that. Hey, Source, I see all the Source Gaines. Hey, T, how you doing? Hey, Reverend Calvin, I'm going to try and creep on your side of the internet later on, because I know you're going live at 9. Hey, Coach Sherry, thank you so much. It's an honor for me to accept this call. Hey, my sister Kimberly Smith, how are you? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Yes, it is there. So make sure that you click. If you click on this form to complete, it is going to take you out of Facebook. But I want you to do it now because, one, I am recording this. And then secondly, I want you to do it while it's on your mind. So click on this survey, complete the questions, and then come right back. Or if you have the type of mind where you can remember about things that you want to do later on, then do it later on. I don't have that mind. All right. I know I got to do stuff right then and there. So yes. Hey, Missy Stokes, how are you doing? All right. So I'm also going to put, hey, Shana Nana, how are you? All my friends and family are coming on. So I will put also in the comments, if you want to invest and you want to be like, okay, I want to see Legaleaze, please go into schools or go into churches or go into, I don't know, hospitals or things of that nature virtually before the world opens back up. Then I will put information in where you can give. It's not about me balling out of control and all that type of stuff. No, you are making an investment, and I am providing receipts, so to speak. So I'm telling you where your gifts go. Your gifts go to subscriptions on media platforms. Your gifts go to this beautiful ring light that I have in front of me. I have never had a ring light before, but because of your gifts, you were able to get me a ring light, and that is only used for business purposes. Your gifts have allowed me to purchase other materials in advance to try and bring Legaleaze to the forefront. Hey, Miss Trudy, how you doing? So, if you want to invest, I will put that information in the comments so that you are able to do so. And if you are not, that's fine just as well, because I am a believer that God provides. Okay, so let me just type this real quick, and then I will get started on my story. Okay, so I told you that I was going to use tonight to talk about my story, my journey, so to speak, as it relates to my journey to law, my journey through law, and what I am doing right now. So I am happy to do that. While I am talking, if at any point you wish to ask questions, this is the time where no question is off guard. So if you want to ask me a question, you just type your question in the comments, and I will make sure that I will get to your question. Okay? All right. So picture it. I'm a big fan of Golden Girls. Picture it, 19 something something. Okay, this is when I was first introduced to. Hey, Mayor Bruce Teague, how are you? I love you. Keep doing the great work. I'm following you. You can make me move to Iowa City. That's the mayor of Iowa City right there, who is my dear brother who I love and adore. Thank you so much for coming. All right, so when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to be an attorney. And I had two reasons for that. The first reason is that I had my uncle, his name is Malcolm S. Robinson. He is an attorney and he practiced civil law, but he was my first glimpse into law life. He is the owner of his own law firm, and ultimately, he was the president of the National Bar Association, which is the largest organization of African American judges and attorneys. And so he would tell me about his practice. He wouldn't tell me in detail about his cases, but just the way in which he carried himself, the way in which he shared information, the way in which he advocated for himself. And he never answered a question that he didn't want to answer. So if I said, for example, Uncle Malcolm, are you going out of town today? He would say, well, what would make you think that I'm going out of town? So he would redirect. He wouldn't say, yes, Natasha, I'm going out of town. He would say, well, what would make you think I'm going out of town? And then by the time we get through this conversation, I've had more questions asked than answers given. So that always impressed me. The other thing was that the home church that I grew up in, which is Trinity United Church of Christ, at the time, the church was located at 532. Shout out to 532 forever. 532 West 95th Street. Every year, they would have what is called Law Day. And Law Day is when you would be paired up through the legal ministry with Black judges and Black legal professionals, and you would spend the day with them, and then you would have lunch, and you would reconvene in like the State of Illinois building, the Thompson building downtown. And I remember a couple of years, the late Justice R. Eugene Pincham, who eventually became one of my great mentors, he would take us to the holding cells that were in different buildings. So one time we went to 26th Street, another time we went downtown. And I remember specifically two places that we went was in his office, which was huge because he was a criminal defense attorney, and then he became a judge, and then he became a justice on the Illinois Appellate Court. And so we went into his office. It was huge. And then time he took us into a holding cell. And in this holding cell, I want to say that there were people in it, but I don't remember. All I remember is he told us to walk in. We walked into the cell, and then he closed the door behind him. And I'm sure at that time, as well as now, that would be considered illegal. But it was the original scared straight for me. I never wanted to hear the slamming of a jail cell door behind me, other than if I was representing someone inside who was facing a criminal case. And so that made such of an impact on me, and the way in which he was able to talk about his cases, to talk about the need for the community to be represented by quality legal professionals. And he used a famous phrase that I use to this day, which is, you can't be what you ain't seen. And so his thing was, if you want to be a Black lawyer, then you need to see Black lawyers. If you want to be a Black police officer, you need to see Black police officers. If you want to be a Black judge, you need to see and interact with Black judges. And so I have put that into my philosophy of life much later when I would teach students about criminal law. So that was my introduction into law. My uncle and Justice R. Eugene Pincham. And so I went to college at University of Iowa. I majored in English, I was there for 4 years. Shout out Hawkeyes, go Hawks. And I majored in English because there was another black man who actually there were two black men that advocated for me to make sure that the degree that I got was not, listen to this, not pre-law, but something where if I decided I did not want to go to law school, I could still have a very successful practice or successful career. The first person who helped me to navigate through high school into college and law school was late Silas Purnell. And Silas Purnell and I and my mom used to meet in that basement in the Ida B. Wells homes in Chicago. And he would have papers all over the place. And I would just be like, how is this person going to be able to help me? Because his papers everywhere. And he would just put his hand on something and he would say, okay, I'm going to do this. He would know people's names. He would know people's telephone numbers because at that time you was using landlines and you just picked up the phone and called somebody. He knew people and he put me in touch with another young man by the name of Matthew Armstrong, who is also resting with the ancestors. And when I got to the University of Iowa, they just took me as their own. They looked out for me. They looked out for a lot of the students there. And so when I majored in English, I picked a major that I knew if I wasn't going to be a lawyer, I could still be very successful in writing, in speaking. I could go into journalism. I can go into teaching English. I can go into teaching English at the high school level, at the college level. I could write for newspapers. I could be an analyst on television. And so English was something that I just loved. I love to be able to read. I love to be able to write. And so that is the major that I selected. While I was at University of Iowa in my last year, I knew I wanted to go to law school. I was just trying to figure out which law school to go to. And I applied to University of Iowa Law School and they put me on a waiting list. And I was so incensed, like, I'm just down the damn street. Y'all, that's what we doing. We putting me on a waiting list. And so while I was on the waiting list, I met another black man whose name is Dean James Thomas. And he is also resting with the ancestors. And he was a dean at the University of Iowa Law School. And he said to me, hey, Natasha, I'm about to go and be dean at University of Wisconsin Law School. And I said, oh, that is so great. And he said to me that if you apply to University of Wisconsin Law School, I will make sure that you are financially taken care of. And you know what? You ain't got to tell me twice. So I applied for University of Wisconsin. I was, and when I got there, I got a full scholarship. And the only thing that I had to pay for was my room and board. Okay. That is not to say that it was not just a financial ride or walk through law school. It was not. And shout out to the Badgers because that's where I was. I was still in Big Ten. And so I went to University of Wisconsin. I graduated from there. I did not know until my last year of law school, which there are 3 years in law school. I did not know until my last year that you did not have to sit for a bar exam if you attended either University of Wisconsin or Marquette University, which is where my niece goes. But in Milwaukee, you did not have to sit for a bar exam if you wanted to be licensed in Wisconsin. You just had to do a character and fitness, which is basically people getting in your business, asking you where you have worked, lived, eat, sleep for the last 10 years preceding or a certain time period. And it is a long ass application. I believe I saved the application because I didn't want to come up with that information no more. So somewhere in my house, I have this application and it's pages upon pages long. So I end up getting sworn in at the University of Wisconsin. At the State Bar of Wisconsin, the Supreme Court Justice swore me in. I actually have a picture somewhere of her swearing me in, Shirley Abrahamson. I think is her name. And then what happened? Uh, when I interviewed with positions in the state of Illinois, I could interview as an attorney because technically I was already an attorney. I was not a law student or a graduate. I was an attorney. So I stayed in Wisconsin and I got an additional job. I remember one summer I worked 3 jobs to pay for different expenses for books and for rent and for things like that. So I stayed in Wisconsin because I knew if I lived in Illinois during the summertime, I was not going to pass the bar. And I had one shot to try and pass. At least I felt I had one shot. So enter in another black man. You may have heard of this black man by the name of Reverend Dr. Jeremiah A. Wright Jr., who was my pastor at the time. I have never said this out loud, but I will say it now. I remember talking to him, and I've known him since I was 7. He is more than a pastor. That's my dad, period, point blank. When I wanted to be a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, he wrote my letter. When I wanted to apply to colleges and universities, he wrote my letters. I still have these letters somewhere in my house. And I remember talking to him as an aside, and I said, Dad, you know what? I did not go through law school and in college to not be able to pay for bar exam classes. And at that time, you have to pay, you probably still do, but you had to pay for your application. Then you had to pay for your tutorial classes. Okay, so I wanted to know what everyone else knew. So at that time, you had 2 types of tutorial classes. You had tutorial classes where you had African American lawyers and judges teaching the bar review classes, and then you had the regular classes. And so I was able to come into town in Chicago, and one of the people that I met whose birthday is today is Desmond Adams. Happy birthday. Desmond and I studied together, and that's where we met, was through the bar review class. And then I went back to Wisconsin, and then what happened was, because I was a bar review rep, all I had to do, now this was my paid job, all I had to do was they would tape the bar review classes like on a Monday, and then they would put it on a VHS tape, and then they would FedEx it to Wisconsin so that we could watch it on Tuesday. And that's how I studied for the bar exam, was I was getting paid to study, basically. And so I would pop the VHS tape in, and whoever lived in Wisconsin that was taking the Illinois bar, we would watch this like 3-hour, 4-hour session, and that is how we prepared. And then I ultimately took the Illinois bar exam, passed, thank you, Jesus. And then when I was sworn in Illinois, Justice R. Eugene Pincham surprised me and came to my swearing in. Okay, so that is my journey from college through law school. Okay, so then when I got back to Illinois, I did not have a job. I stayed with my mom, and my plan was to apply to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and then eventually apply with Cook County Public Defender's Office. Now let me go back, because thank you, Spirit. The reason why I brought up Daddy Wright is because when I told him that I did not get all the way through undergrad and law school to not be able to afford to take the bar exam classes, he, you know, if you've ever had a conversation with him in person, sometimes there is the impression that he's not paying attention aesthetically, which could not be further from the truth, because he is very much paying attention, and he is formulating his very concise response unless he's telling you a joke. And so when I was having this conversation with him, he was like, and I'm just going off. I'm just like, I don't believe this shit. How are you expecting people to want to practice law and they can't afford to take this class, which at the time was almost $3,000? And so he's like, ah. And then within like a week, I receive either a call or I receive it in the mail. This man had paid out of his own pocket. Listen to me. He had paid out of his own pocket the price for me to take these law classes. I didn't have the money. My family didn't have the money. I definitely didn't have the expectation. Um, I wasn't asking him to pay for it or to fund it, but he saw a need for one of his children and he met that need. And I will never, ever, 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 ever forget, because that is just one small pebble of all of the things that he has done and continues to do for so many, and he never talks about it. And you see, I'm 46 now. This happened when I was 25. So it has taken me 21 years to share that story. So I am always indebted to so many people who God has sent my way to help at just the right time that I needed it. Okay, so anyway, apply for the prosecutor's office, and then I said eventually I was going to switch to defense. Well, the state's attorney's office did not give me an interview, but the public defender's office did. And so, I'm figuring that if I've taken criminal law and taken a legal seminar, then I could represent people who cannot afford to, represent themselves. I can do that because I'm thinking everything that I need to know is in a book or a treatise or something like that. And when I tell you wrong, because they don't teach you how to be kind, they don't teach you how to be empathetic. They do not teach you how to make connections with people. That is something that either you got it or you don't. And so I work with the public defender's office, the law office of the Cook County Public Defender, for almost 12 and a half years. Almost 12 and a half years. My first assignment was in Bridgeview, and I had a partner, and we were in traffic. And I remember being so nervous because if you have ever looked at a traffic abstract, it looks similar to what the Matrix looks like. It's a whole bunch of numbers and a whole bunch of columns. And if you look at it, you don't really know what you're looking at. I know what I'm looking at now, but at the time, I was just like, how am I supposed to read this? And so I would have the statute book, and then I would look at the abstract to be able to confer with my client and tell my client, you have so many DUIs in your background, or you have so many driving on suspended or revoked license, because then that sets the framework for how we are to pursue a case, either by way of a plea or by way of a trial. And so I was in there for 2 weeks. I went to training downtown at 69 West Washington. And that's when I found out my real assignment was at abuse and neglect. Now, I had never heard of abuse and neglect, which we now know is called the Child Protection Division. Shout out to all the PDs and the state's attorneys there. I had never heard of abuse and neglect. And I was like, okay, so what, we trying to keep them from going to jail for the alleged abuse and neglect of their kids? And they're like, oh no, this is civil in nature, which means as the attorney, my clients would be facing civil allegations of abuse and neglect, which means that if they were found to be derelict in their duties or in their upbringing of their kids, they could have their kids taken away from them for more than just a prescribed period of time. And so I had no idea what I was doing. But I tried to learn very quickly, because one of the things that happens in the public defender's office, and really in a lot of criminal firms, state's attorney's office, private offices, public defender's office, you are baptized by fire. They say, welcome, here is your caseload, I'll be here if you need me. And you really begin to hone in on your skills. You begin to rely on your partners, and you always reach out to your supervisors or your chiefs. I have been a little spoiled in that I have always had great chiefs. So my first chief, and supervisors really, my first chief was Darren Bowden, who is now Judge Darren Bowden. And my supervisors were Wendy Schilling and Ramon Ocasio, who is now Judge Ramon Ocasio. And it was very, very, very difficult because I'm used to, hey, let's get in the crime. And this was not crime. This was civil in nature. Okay. And so my partners, hey, Sor, how you doing? Good evening. My partners were, and still are in life, my partners were attorney Aaron Goldstein, who you may know. He has represented the governor, former governor Rob Blagojevich. He's just like my brother from another mother and father. And then my other partner was attorney Kimberly Malone Lockett, who both of still work in the public defender's office. Aaron is the chief of the Child Protection Division, and Kimberly is an experienced criminal defense attorney out here at Markham, and I am the godmommy to her son. Okay, so we became family. Now, some of the experience that I had at the abuse and neglect, I've not spoken about because I did not want to. Hey, sister, help! How you doing, sister-in-law? Help! That's my big sister. Kiss the babies for me, please. I'm gonna tell you a story. Okay, one time we were in court, and if you have ever been in juvenile court on the civil side is not open to the public. It's confidential in nature. So when you walk into a courtroom, you only have 2 rows. I don't know what it is now, but at the time, you only had 2 rows where people could sit. And then over the gate, you had a counsel table, and then you had the bench where the judge sat. And so shout out again to another beautiful person, Judge Michael Brown. Because the first year I was an attorney, he was the first year as a judge, and that is where he was situated. And also shout out to Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman, who is the next courtroom that I went to after Judge Brown. Neither of these judges were involved in the story that I'm going to tell you. So I am in court with the state's attorney, with my partners, and with a guardian ad litem. A guardian ad litem, because I'm still teaching. A guardian ad litem, or a GAL, is an attorney that is appointed to advocate for the interests of a minor. All right. So if there is a custody hearing where there is a determination that a child has been abused or neglected, then the guardian ad litem is the person who advocates for the child. The child is their client. So they are able to visit the child and see how are they doing with their parents, or how are they doing with their foster placement, and then they make recommendations to the court. They also are an attorney if there is a hearing or there is a trial. So instead of 2 attorneys talking, you have 3. And sometimes you have 4, because DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services, they also have their own counsel who can kind of weigh in on policies and procedures as it relates to casework. So anyway, in court, it is a break, but the judge at the time has not left the bench. So the judge is sitting on the bench, which is up here, and we're sitting at counsel's table. Hey, Poppy, you know I'm going to tell it. And all of a sudden, this judge starts taking rubber bands and popping them at me. Now, I've not done anything to this judge. And so I look to my co-counsel, my brother and my sister, Aaron and Kim, and they can verify this story. I look to them because I'm like, am I tweaking? Do I need to take a nap? And they're like, no. And this judge continues to pop rubber bands from where they are sitting on the bench while we are in court. And so I say to the judge, as I'm seated down, sit down, as I'm sitting, if you pop one more rubber band at me, it's on. That is exactly what I said. I didn't cuss. I didn't get up and walk to the bench because we are on a recess. But you are sitting as a judge in your seat in a judge's robe, popping rubber bands at me. We ain't cool. We ain't homies. I don't understand what it is that I've done to make this race so hard to run. So she said, what did you say? And so I said a little louder, if you pop one more rubber band at me, it's on. Yes, I did. This is a true story. And I got receipts. And she sat up, and people who were kind of working or whatever, it was like everything just froze. Because I have not backed down from what I've said. And she kept popping rubber bands. And I turned to my co-counsel. Thank you, Aaron. My brother Aaron Goldstein is on here. And he was there. This is a true story. He got stories of his own. But I'm not going to tell his story because I don't have his voice. But yes, I said if you pop one more rubber band in me, it is on. And the judge sat up. Aaron sat up. You see, he's right here. My sister Kim sat up, and they're just like, oh, Natasha, just don't do it. Don't do it. And I said, no, because if she thinks she's big and bad enough to pop rubber bands at me in open court, it's going to be a misunderstanding. She sits up and says, you know what? Just because you go to, because at the time I was going to Trinity, I know black people, I like black people, and just because you go to Trinity, ain't nothing you can do to me. And I was like, excuse, and as I'm putting my hands on my thighs, because now I'm getting ready to stand up, excuse me? And so then you don't scare me, you don't, first of all, ain't nobody made no threat. All I said to you is if you pop more rubber band, no, actually what I said is if you pop one more rubber band at me and I catch you in the street, it's on. That's what I said. That was the second time because she kept popping them at me. And so she got up, my co-counsels, my partners, they got up, the state's attorney got up, not because they were looking at me like they were going to arrest me, because they're looking at the judge and then they're looking back at me like, oh snap, now, you know, Natasha can be the nicest person in the world until, and your job is not to take me past until. But my thing is, if you are removing away the officialness, that's not a word, but that's what I'm going to say. If you are removing the officialness of the decorum of the courtroom, and you're just trying to, you know, holler at me like we homegirls, I'm going to give you what you came for. I didn't care. And so she got up, and then her sheriff got up and hustled her down. Hustled her down the steps of the bench. And I was still like, because what you ain't gonna do is, and of course, my brother and sister tried to calm me down. And then later she called me into her chambers because she told me she felt that I was being racist. That I was being racist because I came at her in a way that made it seem as if her lineage, her ancestry, her race, her gender was not taken into consideration because, as she put it, not me, she loves black people. And as a whatever race and gender, well, you know, she identifies as female, whatever race she was, that she would never, never, never do anything to hurt the black community. Now, how I'm looking at you now is how I'm looking at her. Because What am I gonna say to that? You already hurt the black community when you was popping rubber bands in my ass in court. What did you think I was going to say? You thought I was just going to lay down and take it? Clearly, you didn't know this black person. So I say all that to say that sometimes you just got to stand up and do what is right. And was I held in contempt? Was I held in contempt of court? Hell no, I wasn't held, because I'm like, if I'm going down, she going down with me. Okay, and that's on, as they say now, as my students will say, that's on everything. Okay, nothing was going to happen to me. Yes, she loved snatching black kids from their parents, absolutely. And you remember Aaron when she would say, if you are a guest of the state, she would tell parents who had no criminal background, when she was admonishing them about coming to court, she was like, well, if you were to get arrested, not that you would, but if you were to get arrested. And we like to see that's that foolishness. That's that systematic bias, that racism, where you are able to weaponize your beliefs in a way that causes further oppression to people who are presumed to be innocent. So she is now, I don't know if she's resting with the ancestors, but she is deceased. Okay. And I have lived to tell the tale. Now that's not the last judge I have ever got into it with. But that was the first one, because my thing was, you're not going to sit up in court with a black robe on and continue to dehumanize me in front of other people and think that ain't going to be no furniture moving. All right. So anyway, so that was my first assignment. Eventually, I then got transferred to, Markham, which is where I spent the rest of my career, representing everyone from someone who had a nickel bag all the way to first-degree murder. I shared earlier about how I would get love letters from my clients, and some love letters I would get from people that I didn't even know, because I had a philosophy, and the philosophy was, whoever I represented or whoever I interacted, I am not better than them. I am just the person that is able to synthesize legal information and advocate on their behalf. So whenever I would go into lockup, lockup would be very small. I would walk in and I would greet everybody. I would tell them who I was, what my job was, and what I were trying to do. And while I would interview clients, I would be writing, and I would be using my knee as the ledge for me to write on. Or I could use the wall. I didn't use the wall as much because if you try to write while your paper is on the wall, then your ink is going to be affected, and all of a sudden you won't be able to take notes. So I have gotten very good. I still can to this day. I can write down your whole life story and just hold my leg and my knee in such a way that, because there were no tables, I can get information from you. And so when I walked into the jail cell, there would be nothing but black men, some Latino men, but mostly black men. And it would be about maybe 25, 30 of them in this very small room, and they would be charged with everything. They would be charged with possession of cocaine. They would be charged with sex assault. They would be charged with home invasion. Sometimes they would be charged with crimes that I had watched on television, and I would just be sitting somewhere at home to my Lord, please don't let me be involved in this case. Please don't let me be involved in this case. And then I would come into work the next day, and damn it, if I wasn't on that case. But I was like, you know what? There is always a narrative that is shared with the public, and there is a narrative that is never shared, that the attorney learns about. And so I say all that to say, what you see in the news and what you think is a story is not always a story. But I would come into the cell, and the sheriff would lock the door behind me, and I would tell them who I was. And I would always have someone that would say to me, hey, Miss Lady, you ain't scared about all these motherfuckers in this cell with you? And I was like, no. And they'd be like, why not? Because you are still human. You are men first before you are people of the state of Illinois versus defendant such and such. You are people before you are inmates. You are people before you are this. And I would say that to them, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, she down. Miss Lady, that's good shit right there." And I'm just saying what they would say. That's good shit right there, Miss Lady. Because what happens if one of us would pick you up and throw you up against the wall? And that's when I'll be like, "Okay, slow your roll. Don't let this suit fool you." And then they would start laughing because they knew that meant uh, just because I know the Lord don't mean I am the Lord. I will put some of that act right on you, okay? And then film it, and then nobody will prosecute me. Okay, so that was the way that I established a rapport with my clients. Because my thing is, if I'm afraid of my client, how am I going to advocate for my client? Now, of all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients that I have represented, I have only been afraid of one. Only been afraid of one. And I resolved that by every time I spoke with that client, I would have someone with me. Because he was accused of some very, very heinous crimes. And at one point, his lips slipped and he said something to me about me. And I had to let him know I ain't always been a lawyer. Okay. I still got, I would say, feet in the street. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay. So we handled that. Hey, Dr. Edie, how you doing? So that was with Markham. And I can tell you, I would have to probably do a part 2 to talk about some of the cases that I have had there. I remember when I had a case that was natural life, which is if my client did not prevail in court, he was going to prison for the rest of his life. And I remember he did not like me. And I wasn't really particularly fond of him, but that didn't matter because we were still going to go to the mat in terms of me representing him to the fullest. And I remember telling him on one day, sir, you cannot continue to come to court with 4 pigtails. So it was like if I were to take my hair, divide it into quarters, and then that would be my hairstyle. Now, his head was not full like mine is. He had a little bit of hair right here, a little bit of hair right here, and right here in the back. But he was able to gather it in such a way, it was like he had gotten some Let's Jam. And he had stretched his hair follicles enough to create 4 ponytails. And I was saying, okay, sir, if we are going to not completely rewrite who you are, that's not what I'm saying. If we are to show the best version of yourself and for you to establish a rapport with the jury and with the judge, I need you to kind of fix up your hairstyle. And he was like, "Oh, yo, Ms. Robinson, I got you. I got you." And so the next day he came to court. Next time he came to court, he had 3 ponytails. He had taken the first 2 and he had grabbed them together into one tight ass ponytail, and then he had 2 in the back. And I was just like, all right, fuck it, let's go. Let's go. Okay. So it has just been a journey in terms of representing hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of clients. And it's not just about your reputation stopping in the courtroom. It is about writing letters of recommendation. It is about talking to employers about why your client should be fired. It is about trying to raise money and have them bring clothes, or like my colleague Sherry Gladney, she in Markham Courthouse, she would sell peanuts to people in the courthouse and use the peanut money to go and buy clothes for our clients, to have them dry cleaned, and to have an array of selection for people so they could still feel like a man and a woman when they came to court. Okay? Because if you don't feel that way, then, I mean, you're already stressed enough trying to fight a system that is created and designed for your demise. So the least that we can do is try to make sure that you still retain your humanity throughout the process. Okay, so that is what we would do. I told you earlier about a man that I was interviewing, and he told me that he had missed court because he was in a fire. And I asked him, through a series of questions, is there anyone who can verify why you missed court so that this warrant can be quashed against you? And he said no. He said, but I do have proof. And I said, okay, what is your proof? And then he pulled down his pants, and he was naked from his waist to his feet. And he showed me the burns that he has sustained in this fire. The problem is that he was showing me all of what the good Lord gave him. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that you definitely got the proof that you've been burned. I don't think that you need to show me your penis no more. But thanks for, verifying. And I mean, it was just things like that, things that no book could prepare you for, no class could prepare you for. What you would do is you would just learn on the job, and then you would just file it in your toolbox as another lesson learned, another experience that you went through. I remember one time I had a press case where the woman was she was the mother of 3 children. She lived in Iraq, and she and her husband came to this country, and her daughter had a lot of different developmental delays. She was on the autism spectrum. She was blind, and I want to say she had trouble speaking. And so the mother lived under the regime of Saddam Hussein. And on Mother's Day, her husband said that they were going out. And the mother said, look, I can't take this. This child was the oldest. I can't take her. I need a break. I need to be able to just relax. Because the mother would say every time she would try to engage with her daughter would beat her down in such a way that it reminded her of the regime that she had lived through under Saddam Hussein. And so the mother says that she, and this is a press case, so it's nothing confidential. The mother tied this daughter to the radiator of the home in the apartment that they lived so that she can go out. And I think she went out for like an hour. So she left this daughter in her apartment tied to the radiator, and it was the mother, the father, and the other 2 children who didn't have any delays or anything like that and didn't need extra support. They went out. While they were gone, somehow the daughter was pressing up against the screen of a window that they had been asking the landlord to fix for months. And she pressed on this screen and she fell to her death. And the mother was facing criminal charges, as well as whether or not her 2 remaining children were taken by DCFS into custody. This woman, she did not speak much English. The language that she spoke well was called Urdu. Okay. And so we had to find an Urdu interpreter who was able to interpret for her, not just Urdu to English, but Urdu to English legal language. Because legal language, there are just some words that just do not translate well. And so I remember before the interpreter arrived, the first thing I said to her was, Assalamu alaikum. And she said, Alaikum salam. And I said to her, I am sorry to hear about the death of your child. And she told me later, no one had ever said that to her prior to me saying it. She had been hustled back and forth between different legal systems, from jail to court. No one had ever expressed any condolences. And when I said that to her, she literally broke down and wept in my arms. And from there, we established not just a client-attorney relationship, but just a relationship in general. Because it was through our relationship that she started to learn more about the United States, and her English got way better. And she would oftentimes invite me to her home, and she would cook the best meals, and she would teach me Urdu, which is why I remember the language. Um, I remember one time I had a client who was deaf, and we tried to get her an American Sign Language interpreter, but she did not speak American Sign Language. She spoke a uh, a derivative of that. It would be the equivalent to what people would call ebonics, which is she spoke a sign language that was not considered to be regulated. So we had to get two interpreters. So every time we would talk to the judge, it would be like I would say, state your name for the record. And then the American Sign Language would then sign to the relay interpreter who spoke the unofficial sign language. And then they would relay that, they would sign it to the client, and the client would say, my name is Kathy. Okay. And then they would relay that to the relay interpreter, who would then relay that to the American Sign Language interpreter, who would then say what the answer is. So can you imagine every court date where that is the same thing? Whenever I met with her, it had to be that way. And I was frustrated at first, but then I thought about it and I said, you know what? These are things that need to be mandated, because she deserves as much legal protection and advocacy as anybody else. And so it's not an inconvenience to do the right thing. Okay? All right. So while I'm talking, if you have any questions, remember I told you no questions are off guard. Feel free to ask me whatever it is that you want. Okay, so while I was in the public defender's office, there were two trends that I saw. One, my clients were getting younger and younger, but they were being charged with more adult offenses. And two, when there would be statement or confession cases, and I would sit down with my clients to go over it with them, they could either A, not read it back to me, the confession that they were accused of writing, or B, they could not explain what they meant when they say, I knowingly and voluntarily give the right to make this statement. Because as you know, people, you can wake them up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and after they cuss you out for waking them up, you can ask them, tell me what your Miranda rights are. You have the right to remain silent. Anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. But there are legal meanings and consequences to those rights that not everyone knows or fully understands. That does not make them stupid. It just means that sometimes what you may say may have a consequence that you have not intended to accept, but lawyers know what those consequences are, and so do judges, and so do police officers. So I felt that my presence in the courtroom would be better felt if I transitioned from the courtroom to the classroom, and I could debunk the criminal justice system by teaching people their rights before they got into the system, so that usually by the time you're in the criminal justice system, it's a little too late. All right. So I was like, okay, now I got a plan. Now I need to figure out how to make this plan happen. So I went back to school and I got a master's degree in English from Chicago State, because I felt, okay, well, I'll teach English and I'll do this on the side, not knowing that there was a law program that was waiting for me. And shout out to Jacqueline Bryant, who was the head of this law program. And shout out to my friend and brother Rodney Carr, who is the chief of the Markham Division. He is the one who told me to apply to Chicago Public Schools and apply to teach law. And so me having my master's degree, let me tell you about my master's degree. While I was still working full time as a public defender, I would go to school at night and on the weekends to get my master's degree. And so I have, again, receipts. I have good friends from the state's attorney's office who would, while we were in court and I didn't have any cases, I would be sitting to the side and I would just take a couple of minutes and read a little here and read a little there. And if I had a paper, what they would do is I would call one of them over and I say, okay, read this and tell me what you think. And they would say, okay, this is good, rearrange that. Do it. And this is all while this is, in court on breaks. Okay. So that was my relationships with the state's attorneys who were not on the cases that I was on. And I will tell you something about the judges that allowed me to get my master's degree. I got to the last semester of my master's program, and I needed to be out of the building by a certain time because I had to take this last class, and the last class was Chaucer. And if any of you have read the Canterbury Tales, then you know that this is not a class that you want to miss, either because you got to take it for graduation and it's just not an easy thing to read. So I was trying to figure out, how can I get out of this building and make it from Markham to Chicago State and not miss this class? And so the Spirit told me, just talk to the judges. And so I went to every judge that I had a case or cases in front of, and I told them this dilemma. And do you know that they scheduled my cases in such a way that I was out of the building and never missed a class? They didn't have to do that. But when I told them the predicament, they were like, Natasha, we got you. We will schedule your cases in such a way that you are able to be done at a certain time period. And then they talked about it with the prosecutors, and the prosecutors had no problem, and my clients had no problem. So that just, I'm big on connections and divine intervention. Those judges did not have to do that. They could have said, we don't give a shit what you're trying to pursue. You need to be in court. And they had no problem saying that. But because of the relationship and because of the belief they had in me, if there was space on my master's diploma, I would definitely put down those that helped me, and it would also include the judges. Okay, so I leave the public defender's office in August 2012, and I start teaching at Chicago Public Schools. Now let's talk about the salary adjustment. When I left the public defender's office, I was almost at 6 figures, okay? And when I went to CPS, my salary jumped down almost to, let's see, a little more than half of my salary, okay? The house that I'm sitting in now, I rented it out and I moved into the city because CPS has city residency requirements. I had what's called the world's biggest garage sale. Some of you were there. And I sold everything except to my apartment. But I knew this is what I was called to do. There are a lot of people that called me crazy, that talked about me behind my back. They don't think I know, but I do know. There were those that was like, fool, are you crazy? You're going to leave the public defender's office and the practice of law in order to teach high school kids? But I knew that's what I was called to do. Now, what was stressful is that the principal who I eventually worked with, the first one, was not the principal who hired me. So I worked at 2 schools in Chicago Public Schools. I worked on the south side and I worked on the west side. When I was hired on the south side, I was hired by the principal and the assistant principal of the school. In between my hiring and my start date, 2 things happened. One, the school needed a little bit more accreditation, so they told me to wait a year. So I had to wait 1 year while I was still working with the public defender's office, with the anticipation that they would get the paperwork they needed in order for this law program to be verified. So I worked and waited for an entire year before they called me in and they hired me right on the spot. That was the first thing. The second thing was, in between my hiring on the spot spot and my start date, the principal that hired me was fired by Chicago Public Schools. I did not know that until I walked into the school trying to find my classroom and was met with another principal, Dr. Lockhart, and shout out to her, she's a soror. She told me that the person who hired me was no longer the principal, and she was the principal. It's Dr. Lockhart at the time. It's now Afina Shakur. And she did not have to keep me on her staff because she didn't know me from Adam's house cat. But she told me that she would continue to keep me on staff. And then I started teaching pre-law there at that school. And then I taught there for 2 years. And then that school closed down. Well, not the school. The program closed down. And then I had to pick another program. And then I went to the West Side. And that is where I met who I call my forever principal, which is Dr. Femi Skanes. And I taught on the West Side for 4 years. So at the first school on the South Side, that pre-law program was already in existence. When I went to the West Side, I had to build the law program from the ground up. So some of the classes that I taught was criminal law, civil and constitutional law, criminology, which is the study of crime and why crime occurs and what are the theories and the players. And then for the senior year, they could either have an internship with different legal professionals, or they could take a dual credit class at the college level and get college credit. Okay. My first year CPS, I felt I was being hazed. And the reason why I say I felt I was being hazed is because the students there, they needed time to be able to establish a rapport with me. I remember when I came into class at that time, it was no one at the administration, it was not their fault. There was a rodent problem. And so I would go into class and I would see mice and rats running around my classroom and the courtroom. And so when I would go to class every day, I would walk very hard before I walked into my classroom, so whatever was in the class could disperse before I walked in, because I am terrified of rodents. And I remember one time walking into my classroom and seeing a mouse on my desk and me trying to rattle things so that the mouse could run away. CPS had to hire a construction firm to go out and clear out all of the rodents, because somehow they was doing some type of construction work and there was an infestation of mice. And I remember one time I was teaching class and I started to see mice running around my classroom. And instead of screaming and alarming the kids, I told them, you know what would be great? Let's sit on top of our desk for the rest of class. And I climbed on top of my desk and they climbed on top of their desks, and I continued to teach the lesson. They did not know that the reason why I climbed on top of the desk was because I did not want any mice to run past them and scare them or leave any droppings on their personal belongings. Okay, so it was just one of those things. That was my first semester as a CPS teacher. The other part of the CPS was the same semester. I'm a hugger. So I would greet my students, and to this day, I still call them scholars. And so one of my scholar children had a bed bug problem. And I ended up getting bed bugs because of my hugging interaction with them. And I spent my first winter break with Chicago Public Schools at the laundromat, because I had to dry clean everything. I had to wash everything because that had jumped onto me. So that was my first semester of my first year. And to say that I would cry myself to sleep and I went into a depression would be an understatement, because I felt like maybe I had done the wrong thing. Maybe I should not have left the practice of law, but I stayed with it. And as time progressed the kids that used to sit in class and paint their fingernails and do their hair, something changed. And then next thing you know, I would take entire classes out to eat. I remember one time I took my senior class out to eat. I took them down to Bennigan's across the street from the Art Institute, and I told them to get whatever it was that they wanted to eat because I was paying for everything. And the way that some of those kids, some of the hardest kids that people would complain about, the way in which they just sat there and cried their little eyes out. And they couldn't believe that I was paying for everything. I'm like, I'm paying for everything. Enjoy yourself because I want you to be familiar with the fact that you are worthy of these experiences. And just because you live in a particular area code or zip code does not mean that you are exempt from excellence. You can continue to strive. You can continue to do great things. And this is just an example. And so they wrestled me down to try and find the bill because they just couldn't believe I paid for it. Same thing when I went to the West Side. When I would have mock trials for my students, I would take them to, so the mock trial for the freshmen was across the street from 26th in California. We would leave 26th California and there was still time for the bus to come and pick us up. I took them to that Popeyes, which was on the corner, and I told them, I'm paying for everything. Just get what you want. Because I had called Popeyes the day before and said, I am bringing about 50 students to your establishment. Is it okay if we could have a section at the Popeyes for us to be able to eat? I promise I will be responsible for everybody. And that Popeyes on the corner of 26th California was so kind to us for a number of years. And for many of those kids, having a hot meal was an anomaly. That was not a everyday occurrence for some of them. And so to be able to sit down with them and them tell me stories about their family and things like that, that is what I would do. There were other times when we would have mock trial practices and the kids were hungry and I would just order pizza. And they would just stay and they would just smash this pizza. And then they would bring their friends who were not on the mock trial teams and they would smash the pizza as well. And I was just like, you know what? Have at it. And some of them would make plates on top of plates because that was the only meal that they were going to get at that time for some of them. So I have had a wealth of experience and a wealth of information and a wealth of lessons that I have learned. The only reason why I left CPS was I found out that I was pregnant, which is a whole different laugh as to how I found out I was pregnant. And I knew that the apartment that I was staying in was too small, and I wanted Grace to be able to have a childhood home that she could remember and run around and grow in. And so that's when I resigned with CPS. And I have been with Roosevelt University. I'm going into my third year. And I teach undergraduate classes. I teach Intro to Criminal Justice. I teach Police and Society. I teach ethics in criminal justice. I teach mental health issues in criminal justice. I teach, I'm forgetting some, juvenile law, criminal law. And so it really allows me to be creative. It really allows me to attune myself to the call for social justice and to still be interacting with students. And I love teaching, absolutely love teaching. Now, had you told me at 25 that this is what I would be doing at 46, I would not have believed you. So this lends into possible criminal justice careers. There are so many different careers that you can go into. You can be a forensic scientist. You can be a court reporter. You can be a therapist. You could be a police officer, a judge. You could be a prosecutor, a defense attorney. You can be an investigator. You can work with human resources in different police departments or in the court system. You can be a clerk. You can be a pretrial officer. Whatever career that you are drawn to or what you are interested in, what I would suggest is that you align yourself with someone who is already in that career. Because it's one thing to read about it, and it's a whole different thing to experience it. And so it is always the experience that can help further inform and substantiate your decisions. That's the first thing. The second thing is when you are in high school or undergrad, make sure that whatever it is that you major in or that you specialize in, you develop what are called transferable skills, which is, for example, what I do tell, now this may bump up against career specialists and things like that, but I'm just saying this as Natasha Robinson. I do not subscribe to a person majoring in pre-law. I don't do it. And the reason why I don't do it is because if you're going to law school anyway, law school is going to teach you the fundamentals so that you are able to build your legal career and your legal acumen so then you can go into the legal field. Okay? But if you're majoring in pre-law and if you have that label over you and you get to law school and you decide that you do not want to be in pre-law, then what are you going to do with that major? It's like cutting you off, in my opinion. My opinion is that you can major in anything you want and go to law school, okay? Because law school is a fine-tuned location where they teach you the substantive law, like contracts, like civil procedure, like property, okay? And they teach you about the procedure of law. So that leaves you an undergrad to major in what you like, okay? And then major in what you like, but make sure that you are picking out of that major the skills that help you read, the skills that help you think, the skills that help you adequately express your position as well as the position of someone else. Because critical thinking is not just about advocating your position, but being able to do a counter argument. So you can look at someone else's argument and say, okay, there are some things in this argument that undermine mine. But let me tell you why my argument is better than yours. And you don't just root it in emotion. You are rooted in research and evidence. Those are what I mean by transferable skills. I'm looking at the questions. So what college majors would you suggest for these careers? Okay, so criminal justice, of course, is a major that one can go into. And criminal justice, depending on the university you go to, will teach you about policing. It will teach you about criminal law. It will teach you about police and society. It will talk probably more so about data and theory-driven information, unless you go to a university that has experiential learning, where you are able to not just learn in the classroom, but learn in a particular setting. So some majors, criminal justice, English, accounting, psychology is another major that I see a lot of, business, Spanish, the languages, French, because sometimes people want to go into criminal law, but they want to be interpreters or translators. Those are some of the majors that I would suggest. I just, people that ask me about pre-law, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't recommend pre-law because I think it limits you from everything that you can major in. Psychology and African American studies, absolutely. Psychology, I have a lot of psychology major students who are in my classes because they are able to talk about how the mind is set, not just the brain itself, but its psyche. They are able to confer with lawyers or give expert opinions as to whether or not someone is competent or whether someone is deemed to be insane. They are able to read medical records and be able to offer expert witness. So yes, psychology is a great one. African American studies, absolutely. You can go into a criminal justice career and decide that you want to be a professor, or you want to do a blog, or you want to go on to different media platforms and talk about the relationship between criminal law and the historical oppression of African and African American people. So you can do anything you want. I don't know if there's an undergraduate major for civil rights law, but if you wanted to go into civil rights law, there would, depending upon the university, there is sometimes a class or a program or a clinic that a person can take to learn about what civil rights law would look like in actual practice. For the University of Wisconsin, which is where I graduated from, their theme was law in action. So it wasn't just about learning law in the class, it was about aligning yourself with different clinics that during the semester you were supervised by an attorney or you were supervised by a professor, and you would do a project or you would do cases in court so you could kind of see what it was like in real life. So I would suggest that whatever major you are in, make sure that you align yourself with someone who is already doing the work you think you want to do, and then establish a mentorship, one in which you're able to sit down with them and see for yourself the benefits and the challenges of being in that area, and then you can go from there. Let's see. My niece wants to work as some kind of criminal law. Yes. So let me tell you, Tanya, there is an expanse of what you can do with criminal justice. You can, hey, Aunt Marlon, you can teach. You can lecture. You can be a consultant. You can be an expert witness. You can be a person in law enforcement. You can work within the medical field. So if you want to talk about medical ethics, you can do that. If you want to write, if you want to practice law, if you want to be a judge, I mean, there is just such an expanse of things that you can do within criminal law. The traditional way was you graduate from college, you go to law school, and then you start practicing. Okay? If you want to work with the FBI or the CIA, you can have a law degree and just not practice law. If you want to, I had a classmate of mine, she was a nurse, and she got her law degree so that she could be able to give input as it relates to civil litigation. Okay? You can major in anything. If you want to major in science so that you can be a patent attorney. I know going to one judge, his major was chemistry, and he still went to law school. Okay, so it's not just a traditional, I have to have a law titled major. You can major in anything you want, and I promise you, the way in which you can transfer or translate your skills, no matter in what you major in, what law schools are looking for or what criminal justice is looking for is your ability to review details, your ability to synthesize information, your ability to pick a position and align your emotion and your evidence to that information within the presentation, how you are able to think critically. How are you able to look for textual evidence to support your position or say why your position is undermined? How you are able to research, how you are able to take a lot of resources and pull them together in the form of a persuasive argument or persuasive writing or a presentation of writing. There are just so many different avenues that I had not quite considered because I was going the traditional route. But now that I am a professor in criminal justice, everything that I have done, it has not been a detour. It has just been for the long haul. It has allowed me to continue to deepen, to widen, to expand my understanding of how people learn. And in my teaching, I did not go to get a master's in education because I never thought that I was going to be teaching. But I was still able, through professional developments and through aligning my time with other persons, I was able to see not just the theory of education, but the practice of it. And let me tell you, a lot of my students to this day tell me that they would not have had favorable and positive interactions with legal professionals had it not been for the pre-law program. Because I was big on telling them that I do not want their first interaction with the legal professional to be because they are a witness, a victim, or a defendant of a crime. I wanted them to be able to hold up their shoulders and to look in people's eyes and express to them who they are, what they want, and to know that they are worthy of that. That is their birthright, is to be able to walk into any space equipped with the power and the knowledge of their ancestors and equipped with the knowledge that they have acquired in class. So whether I took them to 26 in California or whether I took them to the Blue Cross Blue Shield building for a training or a conference, I've always told my scholars that you are already winners, you are already scholars, and you just need to walk in that knowledge and be equipped in that authority so you are able to navigate any space, to be able to defend yourself in your arguments, to be able to attack an argument without attacking a person, and to know that whatever you do, I will always support you. That has always been my philosophy as it relates to my teaching. My daughter just graduated with a double major. She's a community activist. Do I have any ideas for her to connect with someone who can mentor and help with a job doing advocacy? So, Sherry, we'll talk offline. I have to think about what resources are available, but I'm sure with all the connections that I have with people who have loved on me and have helped me, that we can find somebody that she can partner with and can provide her with real life lessons. Okay? Any other questions or comments? I've kind of gone over my time. I didn't want to go past 9:45, and it is 10:04. I am a person who honors time, but I also thank you for coming on my side of the internet to hear my story. I'm telling you, it has many chapters. There are a lot of things that I did not talk about, and I may talk about it in the future, but I just wanted you to kind of hear my story and kind of understand that even though it's not the trajectory where I thought it was going to go like this, my story kind of goes like this, okay? But at the end of the day, forward motion is still motion. Okay, and I would not change anything about my journey. Not one thing. Not the mice crawling around, not the bed bugs, not the having my salary cut in half, not having 120 cases. All of that has strengthened my inner resolve so that I am able to be the best I can and look through several lenses when I am speaking with students, when I am representing clients, when I am teaching. It has made me a better person. Oh, thank you, Elisa. You're still the amazing person. Oh, yes, Elisa is my childhood friend. All right. Hey, Chocolate. Hey, twin. How are you? So thank you, Tanya. I appreciate it. T. Renee, thank you. Like I said, I've gone over my time. So what you can do for me is, if you have not already, I have pinned a survey that I want you to complete, because when Legaleaze resumes, I'm going to be picking up and talking about different subjects. So I have one subject coming up about voter suppression. I have another one as we get closer to the beginning of the school year. I'm going to have a Legaleaze subject that talks about the criminalization of schools, or rather the criminalization of Black students in school. So you don't want to miss that. I have an upcoming Legaleaze episode that talks about, hey Glenn C., I'm so glad you made it. I am going to talk about jury duty and jury nullification. I know that that is a popular theme in today's streets about how we should nullify juries, which means that no matter what the evidence is, we should set someone free because the system is rigged. I have a position about that, and I am not for that. I've actually, at a presentation, I got into a heated discussion about why jury nullification is not the way to go. And I talked about the historical aspects as to why it was created in the first place, which is to get white folk off for crimes that they committed against black people. But I'll talk about that later. So I have some ideas coming up, but of course, this is a transactional experience. It is not just me telling you what I think you should know. I want to hear from you. What is it that you want to talk about within the framework of criminal law? So there was someone who said, Natasha, I want you to talk about wills and trusts. Wills and trusts are not areas in criminal law. Now, if someone snatches your will, or tries to defraud your trust, then that could be criminal. But I specialize only in criminal law. So what topics you want to talk about, you can still put them down and I will still review them, but I really want to hear from you. So please, if you could, fill out that survey. That will help me so much, because if I don't hear from you, then I can only hear from myself. And that may not be the best use of information. Okay, so with that, thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for coming on my side of the internet. I will have this live saved. If you have not already, go to Facebook and type in Legaleaze, please, and follow the Legaleaze official page. And if you have not already, go on over to YouTube and subscribe to the Legaleaze channel. That is another place where I upload all of these videos, so that you're able to watch at your leisure. Okay? Any questions or any other comments, please tell me, because I'm about to log off and I want to make sure that I have not overlooked any questions. I'm just rolling back up. I don't see anything. I still see at least 14 people on here. So for the 14 that I see, do you have any questions or comments? Because you can ask me right now. Now that my daughter is unconscious, I really don't have anything to do. But I'm just not going to continue to talk, just to be talking. Let me open up my beverage because it's waiting for me. All right, so my page, I'm going to type it in, Tanya, so you can see. It is called, let's see, Legaleaze, please. Okay, Legaleaze, please. That is the name of it. Okay. Any other questions you want to ask me? Like I said, this is the time to ask me. For those that want to hang, I'm just going to take a moment, and if you have something you want to say or something you want to ask me, type it in. Otherwise, we're just going to be looking at each other. And I am going to be drinking my beverage. So cheers to you. Let's see. Another thing. My career has also opened me up to lecturing and being a consultant, as well as, so for example, today. My today started with doing a self-care session. And then after that, I was interviewed for a podcast. After that, I was interviewed by a student for another class. After that, I had a conference call. After that, there were about 4 or 5 people that inboxed me or DM'd me asking me legal questions. And then after that, I was officially told that I was going to be a moderator for an upcoming session. And then after that was here. And interspersed in between there was me being mommy, uh, cooking dinner, washing hair, washing bodies, making sure that Grace is taken care of first. Okay. And I also want to shout out my niece, who is my roommate, because she is in charge of Grace should Grace want to get up and sneak downstairs and find out where her mommy is. And Grace has -9 F's to give. She will come right on in here and you will see her face and she'll be like, hi, hi. But when I try to do this work, I try to be as professional as I can. But one day you're going to see her. One day you're going to see her. Okay. So I say all that to say my day was so jam packed with things that I never thought that I would be doing. But, as people say, when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And I have found that all of my experiences as an attorney, as a teacher, as a professor, as a writer, as a mommy, all of that gets to intersect. So I don't have to just show up with certain dimensions of who I am. I show up as all of who I am. In a webinar I had yesterday, I was a panelist and I was able to talk about different things in a professional and personal way. So those are some other careers where you were able to get on networks and talk about different cases. There's just so many different opportunities. So I am not a fan of Facebook Messenger because people be showing me all these, hey, send this to 20 people. And just because you know about me, I don't send shit to nobody. I don't do that. I don't send this to 20 people if you want the Lord to bless you. Okay, well, if the Lord is going to bless me because it's mandated on me sending it to 15 people, I'm not going to be blessed because I'm not sending it. Okay, but with Facebook Messenger, that can sometimes get on my nerve. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to give you my email. And if you have any questions, you can email me directly at that. Okay, it is legaleazeplease@gmail.com. I check it. It is not checked by anybody else other than me. So everything that you email me is confidential. How old is Grace? Grace is 3 going on 83. I am raising an ancestor. Okay. She is the boss of me. She is the whole CEO, COO, CFO of the entire operation that is me. So yeah, so thank you, Glency, so much. Like I said, if you all have any questions or concerns, or if you like with let's see, Sora Sherry, email me at that email so that I am able to. Hey, Keena, another one of my childhood friends. If you are able or want to ask me questions, consider me to be a resource. You can email me at that email address, legaleazeplease@gmail.com. And I will be happy. If I cannot help you, I will put you in touch with people who can. All right? So let's see, what time is it? It is 10:15. It is still people on here. All right, do y'all want to talk about something else? Or are you just watching until I disconnect? Is it kind of like the I hang up, no you hang up, no I hang up, no you hang up? Or y'all just don't have nothing else to do? Are you waiting for me to end it? Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that I have answered every question that you have asked me or every concern. Remember, I told you tonight is the night where there is no limit. So if you want to know anything, how much I made, how much, what my cases were, what were some of my fears, anything like that, this is the time to ask. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to type it in. And then if I don't see any questions or comments, I am going to say good evening to you and you and you. Okay, so 60 seconds. Let's see. Keena, you had come. I came late. Good, 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 good. Good, good, good. Um, I'm trying to see if I have any other war stories that I can tell in 45 seconds. I told the story earlier about my client who killed her daddy twice. She said that she missed court because she attended her dad's funeral, which was not true. Her dad had died 2 years prior, and so she doctored her father's obituary to make it seem like he had just died. And she had told me that he had just died. I had relayed that information to the court. So when I found out that she was lying, you best believe furniture moving. Furniture moving. The rodents would have done me in. Keena, let me tell you, I do not like squirrels, rats, roaches, mice. Anything that can move very fast, I'm out of there. And to see in my classroom mice and rats just they don't mind what I'm doing. They just gonna run around and do whatever. That was terrifying. But what kept me going is the fact of if I could persist, my students could persist. Because for a number of my students, that was their reality in their home. And so it was not saying that I needed to suffer in order to get, street cred. It was more of I am here for a purpose. And if I do not show up, they do not get the information that they needed. So the only mouse that I really F with is Mickey Mouse and Mighty Mouse. And I was not happy about that. But the Lord looked out for me. And I just tried to hang in there. So yeah. It's just one of those things. It's just par for the course. If I ever write a book about it, I will be certain to put that in there, because no child, no student, no administrator, no teacher should have to go through that. Okay? No, me and the scholars would have been outside. Oh, there was a time where I took my students outside and I took them to teach in the hallway, because I told my principal at the time, I'm not doing that shit now. I'll go through many things in life, but they are now outnumbering me. And y'all need to fix that. And they ended up closing the school so they could fumigate it, and they fixed it. All right, let's see. It is 10:19. I am going to bid you all adieu. Again, I thank you so very much. I don't believe in just talking for the sake of talking. But if you need to contact me, I have put my email down here for you to reach out. Okay? If you wish to invest in this platform because you want to help with costs such as subscription costs, things of that nature, I'm going to put my information down here as well. This is not to say that this is mandatory. This is just saying that anything that you are moved to do or not do, we're appreciative of that. I'm forgetting one. Oh, PayPal. Okay, so with that, I'm going to say goodnight to you and yours. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will be here in 2 weeks, okay, because I need a vacation. Now, where am I going? I'm going to my living room, but I still need to rest, okay? So you all take care, be blessed, and have a good night. Bye.